Project.
Welcome to the Project Project, the podcast with the mission to cover every project throughout pop culture and history. I'm Sam.
And I'm Lewis.
And this week is the Project Project Year in Review 2022.
It certainly is. 2022 has come to an end, and we're going to look back on everything that both we've covered and what we've watched in personal projects and decide what we thought was the best thing to come out of last year.
We're welcome to hear what your thoughts are, but we'll find out what our thoughts are first. And you can let us know when we tell you the contact details at the end. I'm not going to barrage you with them up front.
Yeah, probably a good idea.
So we're going to have time codes in the episode description. I've just noticed this morning that Spotify now have like a little chapter thing, so you can just click straight through. So that's really fun. So if you just want to scroll down on Spotify, you can just skip straight through to personal projects. Hear us talk about all the best TV shows and films that came out this year, or last year, as it were.
Yeah, we are recording this before Christmas because schedule-wise, we want some time off for Christmas.
Yeah.
But it is everything in 2022. There's nothing that's going to be released between Christmas and New Year's that's going to be really good.
To be fair, I think there's Glass Onion, which may end up being on our retrospective list
already.
It comes out on like the 23rd on Netflix, but it's been out in the cinemas, so some people may have seen that already. But yeah, we'll follow the same structure as a normal episode. So anyone who's familiar with the schedule, whatever you call it, the layout of the episode, the formula, you won't be too surprised by how this all goes. But before we get to that, how are you today, Lewis?
Yeah, pretty good. It's hard. Well, it's weird because this episode's coming out in a couple of weeks, but yeah, being busy at work, but looking forward to Christmas. Already dabbled with some Christmas stuff because of plans.
Dabbling in Christmas.
Yeah, started to open some presents the other day with family.
You're going to be on the naughty list this year, opening your presents early.
I saw a immediate tangent.
Go for it.
I saw a TikTok the other day of some kid wrote a letter to Santa, it must have been last year, like on Boxing Day, being like, Santa, I'm really pissed off because I only got one of the two presents I wanted. Santa writes back being like, they're really expensive. Maybe you should like be grateful for what you got, otherwise you'll be in the naughty list. And then the kid's like, maybe you shouldn't have slaves. You're on my naughty list. You've literally got elf slaves. Expensive shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah.
And then it's like Santa saying, I've told your parents to take away your Wii U because you're too naughty. You need to be grateful. And then the kid's like, I don't like what you've pulled with. I don't like the stunt you pulled with my parents. I'm gonna kill you. Like next year when you eat my cookies, they're gonna be poison. I hope you die. I was like, what the fuck is up with this kid?
Oh, this kid's escalating.
Little Jeremy is off his rocker. But yeah, that very much made me laugh.
Yeah.
How are you, Sam?
Yeah, I'm good. I can't really top that. Same as you pretty much. Looking forward to the holiday period. When this comes out, we'll be in the middle of a little mini break, like you said. But yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm excited to discuss all the things that both of us have watched, and some things some of us have watched and some haven't.
I think that'll add to it, personally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, totally. That wasn't supposed to be.
That wasn't supposed to come off as like antagonistic, but yeah.
Right, so I see how it is. We're fighting this whole episode. I like it. Let's go. So we've got a first segment, don't we, Lewis?
We certainly do. Project news, or for this, the best of Project News 2022.
Whoa.
So I did collate some of the best almost entertaining bits of news we came across in 2022 and wrote a little short list. And we'll just talk about some of, as much as this episode's going to go, talk about some of the ones that I liked and you liked.
Yeah.
Have you got anything to kick us off for your favourite bits of Project News?
So I've got a couple here. This is one of the segments where I don't really remember them as much. I'm sure you don't either.
Yeah.
We've basically got the kind of little headlines, haven't we, here, as it were. The first one that stood out to me was when we got excited about Arnold Schwarzenegger being Zeus and something.
Yeah, didn't it? And it turned out to be like an advert or something.
I think it was something to do with like electric cars, or it was something very slightly like power related.
The idea of Arnold Schwarzenegger as Zeus really got us like
we were really
pumped.
excited. I think this was probably as time recording about this time last year, time of release this time last year.
Yeah.
It was early 2022, and it was a Super Bowl commercial, so it would have been like February or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, we had quite a fun time talking about that.
Yeah.
And it didn't come to anything at all.
No. I've got a few here that can be grouped in together.
Okay, yeah.
Which was announcements of the Adam Project, the Lazarus Project, and Project Artemis.
Yes.
Two of which have come out already. Artemis is coming out.
I was like, what's Artemis then?
Later on. It's
later this year, I think. Maybe.
Yeah. But I think when we first made the list of things to watch and stuff for this, we had the big list. When they announced new things, particularly quite big things, it's always quite exciting. The Andor Project, Netflix film, Ryan Reynolds was quite exciting.
Yeah.
The Lazarus Project, we talked about loads.
Mm-hmm.
We will probably talk about it again later this episode.
I imagine we will.
And yeah, it's just, I always find it quite exciting when there's a new project coming up.
Definitely,
we can build up hype a bit and then watch it and talk about it.
And it
instantly.
gives us a little excuse to talk about it early on, especially if it's announced or in development.
Yeah.
And when it pays off as being like at least somewhat decent, like the Adam Project,
and Lazarus.
And Lazarus as well. Yeah.
No, hopefully Project Artemis will also be
fun.
Good.
Yeah, I've got a couple here that are related as well. One is Charlie Cox in the MCU, and one is Daredevil series. I think one of them was a very early him being, so he already must have been in Spider-Man No Way Home, because that was end of 2021.
Yeah.
But I think it was like some sort of announcement that he was going to be in it a bit more consistently. And then there was something where it was the announcement of the Daredevil series. I think that must have been Comic-Con kind of era.
Yeah, I think that I've also highlighted that one because I think like in general news and stuff, that made me excited, even if I wasn't doing the podcast. That makes me excited because I love Daredevil. So that was definitely a good bit.
Yeah. I've also got one about My Chemical Romance. I think we had a bit of a chat about My Chemical Romance. It's just any excuse just to chat about something that's not normally on the podcast.
One final one that I had noted for different reasons was the ongoing Eden Project shenanigans. Because we had 2 or 3 news stories of stuff through the Eden Project, and then the founder or
like the CEO guy was just being a twat, wasn't
just
he?
slowly losing his mind. They was calling the people of Cornwall like inbred, and then trying to sue that woman for a
like
garden shop.
Northumberland or something like that. Yeah, very, very funny. I'm excited to see where that goes in future. That's our best ongoing series, actually.
Eden Project shenanigans.
Have you got any other project news? Or are you happy to move on to the next bit?
I'm happy to move on. I think there was other bits of news that are exciting. There's other things like the James Bond game that's coming out that is quite exciting.
Yeah.
But I think they were the ones that kind of stood out the most to me.
I did note down the Bison one. I think it's because I remember you said Bison in a way that I found quite funny. And then you were like, is that not how you say Bison?
I think Bison.
I think you said Bison. And I didn't question it for like the whole segment. And then I was like, are you saying that the same way as I'm saying that? Yeah. So do you want to do Project TV shows first?
Yeah, so we'll look at TV shows we've watched with as the main segment of the show.
With Project in the title.
It ended up being 11 different TV shows we watched as the main thing.
Cool.
Obviously some like Zeta, Lazarus, and Blue Earth.
And White Rabbit.
Oh, wait, it's more than 11. I've hidden stuff on my spreadsheet.
Okay, yeah. There was a few that were ongoing.
Ongoing ones.
Yeah,
There's ones like Dexter's Lab and Pinky in the Brain that we just watched one off. And big things like Stranger Things had happened to have an episode of Project. So it's quite a mix of TV shows we watched.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned a few that I would like to talk about. I think Zeta Project's one that I've got up the top there, which didn't end up being like my favorite one overall, but I think by the end where it ended, I kind of have quite a kind of fondness for it, and I think that first season ended quite well, and I was kind of like, yeah, I'm happy to give this a bit of time, but I'm looking forward to revisiting
I also highlighted Zeta because it's like it's a pretty good but not amazing show, because I'm never disappointed to revisit it, and we pretty much watched the entirety of season 1 in 2022. We might have started in 2021. I think
we might have started in 2021, but most of it was 2022.
Yeah, and it's actually been like, oh yeah, I'm enjoying the Zeta.
It's like an old reliable, isn't it?
It literally is. And yeah, it's entertaining, and it probably would have been something I watched as a kid if I was aware of it and saw it.
And the
on.
ties to the DC universe, even though they're very slim, we got Batman Beyond turning up at least once, I think, was it? Bit of a chance to have a chat about that as well, which is always nice.
Yeah.
Actually, on that point, I think I spoke to you off pod last episode. There was something recently in the news. So, as time of recording, it was recently. Apparently, they had Michael Keaton as old Bruce Wayne in a Batman Beyond that was going to be done at some point. And that is a very interesting concept that probably won't happen now.
Yeah.
But I would like to see a Batman Beyond film. I think they could do some kind of weird, kind of dystopian cyberpunk kind of stuff with it.
Yeah, I mean,
look very good.
DC have been going down the route of one-off things. Yeah. So
who knows if
why
they'll
not?
do that now? By the time this comes out, the whole James Gunn situation will be completely different, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably.
Hopefully not. Yeah.
I also noted down Dexter's Lab and Pinky in the Brain because although we watched like 2 8-minute episodes, it was that real nostalgia thing, and it was nice to, in a similar way to Zeta, watching like a kid show, but actually watching stuff that I remember watching from my childhood. We watched it on a Saturday morning.
It was very like in theme, wasn't it?
And it was, I thought it was great fun to cover those 2 shows. Johnny Bravo, not as much because I never watched it as a kid.
Well, in the same vein as well, I really liked the Jackie Chan Adventures when I was younger. So getting to watch an episode of that for the pod was good. Wasn't the best episode, so again, it can't be like my actual best one for this. But I really enjoyed watching that. Project Blue SOS. I've got like some good feeling towards it. I think it's a bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah, I think I was kind of really into it at the start. I think after the first episode, I preferred it to Zeta. But I think it slowed down a bit as we've progressed, and I haven't been as excited to go back to it.
Definitely not. And they're longer episodes. Yeah, I was watching it subbed as well, so there's an extra like element of kind of having to focus in and stuff as well. So.
But I'm looking forward to kind of concluding that and seeing how it finishes off. Yeah. Another thing I highlighted was Stranger Things, even though it's not a project. Stranger Things.
Yep.
Stranger Things was arguably the TV show of 2022 for many people. That last season as well was fantastic, and I feel like we were lucky that there was one episode that was
good,
project, so we could cover it.
The one episode we watched, it's again similar to even Jackie Chan Adventures. It wasn't the best episode of the season. Some of the episodes that were just before or just after were probably quite a lot better. And maybe we can even talk about it in the later segment. But I think that's definitely worth mentioning this for sure. So I feel like there's one that we haven't mentioned.
Quite on purpose. I think for me anyway, it's clearly the best TV show. Project TV show we've watched this year, without a doubt. The Lazarus Project.
The Lazarus Project.
Which we made the very smart decision to actually watch every episode
and
almost
not
week
skip
by
to
week.
the end like we did in the first few.
It was great. It pops up on Project News every now and then because it's being released in America soon. But it was just a really good TV show.
We've said it time and time again. It's the kind of show that maybe we wouldn't have watched without doing the pod, but it's one that if you watched it without, you'd absolutely enjoy it as much as we did. It's just a very good quality kind of British sci-fi drama.
It's the one thing that of all the time doing the pod, it's the one thing that I've actually been going out recommending to people.
I would agree,
I've, at work, with friends, with family, I'm like, you guys should watch the Lazarus Project on Sky. It is genuinely really good. And the fact that like it kind of set up this premise, and then it goes a different angle to what you think in the first episode.
Very much, yeah. That ending of the first episode, I was like, there's something here. There's something special here.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Good performances, good cast.
Yeah.
Nice little world built there as well.
Some great characters, particularly with like the main character becoming a bit of an antagonist as the series progresses. And then the secondary characters like Shiv's great. Love Shiv.
Shiv's an all-timer for sure.
But Lazarus Project has been fantastic. So
are we nominating for breast?
That's Blue Earth.
Are we gonna from here on out? Should we both nominate like our best one of each?
I think it's good.
I
thing
feel
to
like
do.
for this one, we're both going for Lazarus Project.
100%. Like Zeta, Zeta's the only one I'd consider
I'd
because it's
say
got
Zeta's
project in the title.
Yeah, runner up there.
I think it's a close. I say close. It's a definite second, but Lazarus is just head and shoulders above everything else.
100%. So project films.
Yeah, so the films we've covered this year are projects in the title.
Not as many, was it, this time?
No, and it's mostly sci-fi stuff.
Yeah, it tends to be the way with lots of project stuff, which works for us, really, doesn't it? We both like sci-fi.
Yeah, it's just with the title.
Yeah.
A lot of it were quite bad.
Yes.
Like things like
I've not got as many on this as I did for the TV shows.
No, like Christmas Project was bad. Moonbase was bad. Project Kill was bad. The Lazarus Project film was bad.
Yeah.
One thing that I did think was quite good, which we were fortunate because we'd covered the first one last year, was Project A Part 2.
That's my first one on here as well, yeah.
Because I thought it was fun. It's classic Jackie Chan. And because it's a sequel to something we'd watched, you knew the world already.
So yeah, I think it wasn't probably as good as the first one.
No.
But I think for films we watched this year in the project segment of the show, I think it's definitely up there, yeah, for sure. Some really, really strong action scenes. Jackie Chan's always good.
The choreography is brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
What else have you got?
Well,
listed?
we mentioned one before, the Adam Project. Although I didn't love it coming out of it, I think if you look at the other films you watched, it's definitely one of the better films.
Yeah, I mean, it's a high-budget Netflix film of Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, I think the fact it was a Netflix film as well, it was nice because we did get quite a lot of kind of engagement on that as well, which was always nice to see.
I think it's one of the few things we've watched that I've been able to talk with people in real life about.
Yeah.
Not because we covered it in the podcast, because it was a new Ryan Reynolds film. I know lots of people who really, really liked it.
Yeah, I think so. I think we were harsher on it than the general audience.
Yeah, probably because we're a bit more analytical because we knew we had to review it essentially.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was amazing, but it was good fun.
Yeah.
Have you got much else?
I've got we've got two more. One is one that I didn't love again, but I thought it was quite nice to cover something a bit different. It was Project Grizzly.
Project Grizzly.
I didn't love it overall. I remember us kind of being a bit kind of disappointed by how it ended.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, the fact that it was this story of this Canadian kind of eccentric inventor who had this weird life mission to create this bear-proof suit is just a very strange idea, and it's something that I wouldn't have watched otherwise.
No,
and I'm
definitely.
quite happy to have watched it.
It was fun to watch, even though the disappointing ending, they probably could have framed it or told the story a bit better.
I would agree.
But seeing this Canadian man in the wilderness building this ridiculous suit, it
was just a weird little slice of life of this weird part of the world that we're not familiar with at all, and just like little weird cast of characters, and quite a tragic story in reality as well.
We don't often get documentaries. We had Project Nim in 2021, which was one of the better things I felt we watched in 2021. But yeah, it was nice to actually see a real life thing and not just another science fiction film in space. The one my standout though for 2022, I feel like you might have the same, is Project Shadowchaser 2. Shadowchaser, the first one, was ridiculous and silly, but I loved it. The third one is the weakest of the trilogy so far. There's a fourth one that we'll probably watch in 2023. But the second one was that perfect mix of camp, silly action that was just great, and I think that's the film that made us fall in love with Frank Zagarino.
For sure, I think it did what almost no sequels do, and it really improved on all the best parts, but improved in the kind of schlocky B movie, C movie, D movie way that it was.
They gave Frank Zagarino more to do, more lines, make him a bit more human, but still
it was effectively like a redo of the first film, wasn't it? Plot-wise, it was almost exactly the same. It's basically Die Hard meets Terminator for anyone else that watched it. It's well worth a watch. I think it's all on YouTube, and it's the perfect kind of short early 90s kind of schlocky blockbuster. Not even a blockbuster.
No, but it's that perfect level of silly with whilst keeping you interested.
And it's just there's just the cast surrounding him. There was the little boy from Terminator 2. There was the main good guy was like a drunk janitor who kept saying that he was like a judo champion or something.
Yeah, and he
was
former
also a baseball
player.
player, and he didn't. He never threw anything. Was that
Nah.
something?
Yeah, he
and
never
the final
threw.
fight scene. Do you remember Frank Zagarino's just gone completely mental? And he's like commentating it. He's like in the red corner,
Yeah.
and then there's like loads of flying kicks, and he gets electrocuted. And there's a bit where like one of the terrorist bad guys gets killed, and the other one is just like distraught by it, and it's just a really weird moment.
I think of everything we've covered, I think this is the film I'm most likely to go back and watch again.
Yeah, I would really like to watch, especially now we know that out of those first three, it's the standout one out of those three.
And I am looking forward to watching the fourth one.
Yeah, I think we'll do that. Well, we will do it in the coming year. Hopefully it will be at least number 3 in our rankings.
Yeah.
So we're both put with that one for the project film.
Best project film of 2022, Project Shadowchaser 2.
Yeah.
So we also did some other things, final project thoughts in our reports, where one of us goes out and researches something with project in the title and retells the story to the other one, and usually a guest. We've had Kane, Hamish, David on.
Yeah, just those lot this year, I think it was.
Yeah, Amy was on last year, not for a report, but
Devil Man.
I
found this quite difficult too. I haven't really picked a top one for this. I'm kind of just going to see how I feel.
And it's hard to... I found it hard to rank because obviously we did them.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd say the one report that I did that I enjoyed the most was MK Ultra.
Okay,
researching that, and because it was something that I was kind of already aware of, MK Ultra, researching it and then retelling the story to you, and I think it was Hamish.
That was Hamish for that episode.
Retelling that, I really
enjoyed that. I thought it was really good. I also put Project Nemesis, which was another one that you did there. Just because I thought it was a fun story, but it was also something we hadn't done before, which was really nice.
Yeah, I noted that because I was like, that was, like you said, something new.
And I know that you enjoyed watching it, reading it, and as well.
Yeah, and that's got sequels that we may well cover in 2023 as well, because it's something new, and that I thoroughly enjoyed both reading and retelling that.
And I think I said afterwards, I tried to read the comics shortly afterwards, and I was like, I can't read this. I've already had it read to me recently. I can't read this again.
Maybe read it whilst I'm reading the second book. In preparation.
Like, when I know it's coming up, I'll be like, okay. A couple other ones I put down 2 that I'd done just because I couldn't decide which one I enjoyed more. I put down the People's Temple Agricultural Project, which was the Jonestown Massacre.
Yeah, I noted that down as well because it's a fascinating story.
It's really dark. It's really kind of interesting. A lot of people have heard of the Jonestown Massacre.
Yeah, particularly our American listeners will be aware of Jonestown.
Yeah, and it wasn't something that I was that familiar with before doing the research. And we had Kane on, who did know a fair bit. He said he watched a documentary. Can't remember exactly what we talked about off topic, but I'm sure there was some funny moments in that one as well.
James Corden, perhaps.
Probably James Corden. I think we were trying to force James Corden into that one, to be honest. And I also noted down Bluebeam, which is another one I did. The complete opposite of that. Very, very silly, very conspiratorial, very kind of...
hard to follow.
I think both Lewis and Kane kind of just holding on for dear life as I kind of meandered through another crazy Canadian's theory. So I enjoyed that because it was the complete opposite of the Jonestown one. I don't really know. I think, to be honest, I'm probably going to go Nemesis just because I can't really pick one of my own because I didn't really get to listen to it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was, it's a fun kaiju book, which, it was a good story and it was fun to listen to.
Yeah. It's weird picking your own, but from the actual stories, I think I enjoyed the story of Nemesis so much.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you read most of it in like a week and a half or something.
Yeah, I started reading it and then started reading a Game of Thrones, and then I was like, oh shit, I need to cover Nemesis for Project October. Quickly
it was
read
like
it.
4 days or something. You banged
Yeah,
most
and
of
it
out,
takes
didn't you?
so much longer to read a book when you've got to make notes on it as you go.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. I haven't had to do that for the podcast yet. I'm sure it will happen at some point, but
Yet being the key word.
I will. I'll come to you for advice and guidance when it comes to time.
Cool. So, project report of 2022.
Yeah. Well,
Nemesis.
is it?
It's a book report,
but it's yes, it is. Yeah. So that's the end of the main segment of the normal episode. There, wouldn't it be?
Which means it's time for personal projects.
Personal projects.
Best of 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah, so should we start with the TV shows that we watched? We also, a little caveat, we took out all the stuff that wasn't released in 2022.
Yeah.
So this is a more standard year in review 2022.
Yeah,
so what really annoyed me as well, just to go off topic, I meant to say 2022 year in review, and I butchered that in the first bit, and now I can't go back and change it.
What have you been saying?
I said 20 year in review 2022, which is
right,
basically the
that's
same thing.
But yeah, it means like I've been watching things like
Yeah.
Lost and The Boys, which
Yes,
won't be
exactly.
eligible because we're talking about
I
stuff that
actually,
came out.
mentioning The Boys, I have tried to kind of start catching up. So once I do get back up to, did you watch season 3 as well?
No, I'm halfway
Okay.
through season 2. And I
Oh,
have
okay,
been for
yeah.
months.
So I'm about the same. So what? Maybe in the next couple of episodes or whenever it happens, we can have a little bit of a discussion. But yeah, where did you want to start with?
So one
Yes.
thing that I watched that I don't think you watched, but
Yeah.
I really enjoyed was Prehistoric Planet
Yes,
on
yes.
Apple TV, which was the David Attenborough dinosaur. I think it was 4 or
Yeah.
5 part series.
Okay.
Which just felt like a nature documentary, but with dinosaurs.
Yeah.
The CGI was fantastic. You learn loads because it's David Attenborough. And I just thought that was great, and I thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah, that is one that I have been meaning to catch up on. I don't currently have an Apple TV Plus subscription. I'm sure I can find it from our old mate down the road. But, yeah, no, I will. I didn't realize it was only like 4 or 5 episodes, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
I kind of imagine most things are like 10 episodes, and I'm like, oh,
No,
it's too much for me.
I did maybe 6, but I did
Yeah.
want more when it came to an
Okay, yeah.
end.
I remember you saying when we watched Jurassic World Dominion.
Fallen Kingdom.
Dominion. I think they're called the wrong names. Yeah, it's
Right,
Dominion
okay.
because they've taken over and they've got Dominion.
Okay,
They've taken
yeah.
over one part of Malta and a park in Italy, basically.
Yeah.
The Big Bird one, you were like, oh yeah, that was on Prehistoric Planet, and I was
Yeah.
like, yeah. Speaking of ones that I don't think, well, no, I know you didn't watch. Peacemaker was
Yes.
something that I didn't expect to particularly love, but I do think it was probably a standout of the year for me. And I know that the reason you haven't watched it is because you haven't seen the Suicide Squad that precedes it. But I would really recommend both of those two at some point when you get a chance.
Yeah, I do really need to get around to that.
Both very good.
It's John Cena, isn't it?
John Cena, who is very, very good in it. There's supporting cast good. There's a couple of people from the Suicide Squad, kind of, you know, the crew that are in the control rooms and stuff. It's not really a spoiler to say Amanda Waller is on a screen at least once in it, you know.
Oh, really?
But yeah, the whole plot is a lot bigger than you might expect for something like that, and they kind of tie it into the DC universe, or at least as it was at the time, in a little way there. And I would definitely recommend it if you get a chance.
Cool, nice. Another thing worth talking about that we've already mentioned is Stranger Things.
Yes,
because it was a whole series and not just a project series. So it fits better in this.
And the
section.
Nina Project wasn't one of the better episodes, as we said earlier.
No, but I had only watched season 1 before this year and binged watched all the first 4 seasons in prep for season 5, and it is a really good TV show. It's not my favorite of the year, but there's a reason
I think
it was
season 4.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I had water in my mouth. So I couldn't correct you.
There's a reason it's been so like culturally significant, and everyone's been talking about it because it was great. Particularly the last season that came out in 2022 was great.
Yeah, very excited for where it's going.
Yeah, the episode before the Nina Project was the one where
running up that hill.
Yeah, which was just fantastic emotional
And
episode.
the like 2-hour finale or whatever was very good as well. Just lots going on, very sad, very emotional, very intense, lots of action. Yeah, really, really good stuff.
I did have my criticisms, but we probably talked about them at the time.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect series, but it is great fun.
Yeah, I think there's certain characters like Will didn't really get much to do throughout the whole thing. The fact they split them up, you know, I understand it's because they're going to bring them all back for the next season probably because they all hugged at the end or whatever happened. But yeah, and the fact half of them are in Russia as well, so it's a third in Russia, a third in the desert. Yeah, there were problems with it, but I think considering it's the 4th season of a Netflix show, which in itself is a bit of a miracle, isn't it? Yeah, I think it was definitely worth a mention. And if anyone is listening to this and somehow hasn't seen Stranger Things, probably worth checking out.
Yeah, I mean, it took me ages to catch up on it, but it was well worth doing. And once I started that rewatch, I couldn't stop rewatching.
Is the next season due out 2023 or is it 24?
I have no idea.
I feel like it's 24, which
wouldn't
seems
surprise
mad,
me.
but yeah.
And they'll probably do another mid-season break.
Yeah. Well, there was a thing saying that like that was because the special effects weren't finished, and it's like, no. Maybe work harder.
Maybe only like release it when everything's done.
Also, it helped the numbers because everyone was talking about it for 2 weeks in between. Yeah, which is the main problem with Netflix shows is they release all in one go. And like the next one I'm going to talk about, The Sandman, people forget about it within 3 weeks. I watched The Sandman. It was good. I'd been reading the comics, so I was kind of familiar with it. It's a very, very high budget Netflix show, kind of on par visually with Stranger Things, but I wouldn't say it's as good as Stranger Things. Yeah, it's not quite as charming. There's good casts in it, but if you're not particularly, you know, looking for something like that, it's not something I would recommend to kind of everyone particularly.
Yeah,
and that's what I've got to say about it.
Well, I say probably. I might get around to it at some point.
It's good. There's I forget what he's called. Did you watch Enola Holmes 2 in the end?
I watched half of it.
You know the inspector guy with the cane that's following them around?
Yeah.
Who's he? What's he called? I follow him on Instagram.
David
Thewlis. He is in Sandman quite a lot, and he is very good in it. He's and Jenna Coleman's in a fair bit as well.
Oh yeah, I think because she plays a character that's a man in the comics.
She plays Constantine, but she's Joanna Constantine instead of John Constantine.
Right.
Which, you know, she's very good, and I would like to see more of her. But again, that's a DC character, so I don't know if that will happen now.
Nice. Another one that we watched, which had very conflicting audience views on, was The Rings of Power.
Yes, yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed The Rings of Power. It started off a bit slow, but I was hooked into it, and I feel like it really picked up towards the end, and I think it was a really, really good series.
I would agree, yeah. I think I wasn't quite as on board throughout as you. I think you liked it more consistently than me. I came to kind of the similar conclusion to you at the end. I was like, I do really like this. And I gave it kind of its due at the start, and then I think in the middle I kind of fell off a bit, and I was like, it's not really. But I think it's knowing that they've got plans and it's 4 or 5 seasons, 100 years, whatever it's going to be. I can see that it's the first step, the first chapter in a bigger story, and in that sense, I can kind of appreciate it for what it is, for sure. Yeah.
I think the returning characters we're familiar with, mixed with new characters, was interesting and quite well done.
And there was some good like mysteries throughout, like mainly like who's Sauron and who's the stranger. Are they the same person? All that. And I think that was something that I didn't expect from a Lord of the Rings series, like an ongoing like mystery to unpack. Because Lord of the Rings is not really a particularly
here's the good guys, here's the bad guys. Let's fight.
And I think just that was something that really surprised me, and the fact they kept that going till the last episode, and it was quite satisfying the way it all paid off.
Definitely. And we're still not 100% sure who the stranger is.
No, so that's a nice little. It's like, here's what everyone thinks it is, to an almost nth degree, but we're not going to confirm it just to keep you going.
Opportunity to change it. And
exactly.
the Sauron reveal was great. He was one of the people had considered.
I think
I had considered.
Yeah, I think we both mentioned it at least once.
When it was revealed, it was like a jaw-dropping like moment of like, wow, they did that really well.
That's it, and it was a really nice one to go back to each week and discussing personal projects and kind of, as you say,
Yeah.
like our different theories on it and that sort of thing. There's a couple other ongoing ones. I don't know if you want to circle back to them. If you want to end on any either of the
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
Well,
just a couple of quick ones there. I've got to mention Riverdale because it had the most stupid season of all time with the superpowers, ending with the Scarlet Witch kind of Phoenix mode situation at the end. I'm all on board with Riverdale all the time, and I had to
Yep.
mention it for this year. And I'm very excited for that final season, whenever that comes out, probably at time of release. To be honest, they bash these right out. They don't spend too much time on these episodes.
Oh, really? That's surprising.
Yeah. And another one as well that I would put higher up, but I know that you haven't seen, is Cabinet of Curiosities.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I think it's a contender for my top one for sure.
No,
It's
I've been meaning to, but
anthology series produced and kind of, Guillermo del Toro was pretty involved in it. He plays the kind of host of it, and he introduces each story and the director. And not all of the stories are, amazing or groundbreaking. Some of them are a little bit sillier than others. But overall, I think it's a really good collection of like weird tales, and some of them are more horror than others. They're not all particularly scary, but it really had a really kind of resounding effect on me. And I was like, I really enjoyed this. I'm really excited for them to do more. And whenever you get a chance to watch it, as I've said before, I've got notes on all the episodes.
yeah, no, I think a few things that I won't go in detail about, but kind of worth honourable mentions are things like Moon Knight.
Yes.
At the time, was very into.
Yeah, it kind of forgotten about it since then. But definitely at the time, it was a good.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, not the best Star Wars series, maybe not the best Star Wars series of the year, but it was great seeing Ewan McGregor in the role again, seeing Hayden Christensen as Anakin. Anakin again
nice and
was
concise
great.
as well. It didn't overstay its welcome.
And also I think worth mentioning Tales of the Jedi on a similar thing. Very Clone Wars, a bit up and down, but the good episodes were really good.
Definitely more for you than me in terms of you were more familiar with the whole Clone Wars situation, but I did enjoy definitely parts of it. Yeah, for sure. And there's only really two that we haven't spoken about. You go ahead.
Well, we mentioned Obi-Wan and Tales of the Jedi. So Andor, the other Star Wars series that came out, was great. It's in a similar way to Rings of Power. I think it kind of got a bit stretched in the middle.
Yeah, it was split up into different kind of mostly three episode story arcs.
Yeah.
And I think we spoke about it in the finale episode, but the heist story arc was a little bit unnecessary in some ways. It felt like a single episode dragged out into three, and there was good development for everyone, but that was the slowest.
The heist itself was good, but the build up to it was a bit slow. The 3 episodes in the prison were fantastic.
Yeah.
Arguably like the best collection of 3 episodes in any Star Wars TV show.
Yeah, I would say so, from what I've seen. Yeah,
like the Andy Serkis was great, and the fact that it's like a 3 story arc that you get in a film with the start, the setting, the scene, the issue, and then the resolution. It was just great, and it looked great. It felt very Star Wars without having the classic lightsabers, Force stuff.
That's something you can say about the whole series. It feels very Star Wars, and it's very true to kind of original trilogy era and like the look and the feel, but yet could feel and does feel like a show or a story that's taking place just anywhere, anytime. Lots of the political stuff we spoke about kind of have relevance today, and there's creeping fascism and that sort of thing, and the kind of the unrest that's kind of going on, and is bubbling to it sounds very revolutionary of me, but you know what I mean. I think it feels very human, and that's not something that we see often in Star Wars. You normally, even in like Mandalorian, I know they've got jetpacks and there's a Baby Yoda and stuff. For most of that, you're like, okay, this is pretty grounded for Star Wars. And then a Jedi shows up and you're like, oh yeah, there's these samurai, space wizards that show up. And I love Jedi, but sometimes they don't need to be in every story. Or a Skywalker as well.
And I love Jedi stories, like the Tales of the Jedi,
exactly,
Obi-Wan Kenobi. Love them for those reasons. But Andor was really good at showing the Star Wars universe is filled with people.
Yeah, just normal
people who live their day-to-day lives under the Empire.
Yeah.
And it was great at showing that. And I think that was highlighted most in that final episode. Not everyone's favorite, but the whole town walking down the street and then just rioting.
Yeah. Just that whole build up with the kind of creepy brass kind of band situation that speeds
the
up.
speech from Fiona Shaw's character, and then just people have had enough and they just start fighting without a care in the world. I thought it was absolutely brilliant.
And the Mon Mothma stuff, which I didn't expect to enjoy as much as I did, which was more verging on to maybe the next thing that we'll talk about in terms of political intrigue and that sort of thing, and felt a little bit more familiar in that sense, but was kind of gripping throughout, and you really feel for this poor woman that's just doing her best with what she's got.
And like how it showed, we were saying the people in this universe. We don't get many Star Wars political dramas.
That's it.
When they dabbled with politics in the prequels, it wasn't the best.
Oh, we got kind of references to that with the whole Senate situation, didn't we? Which was quite nice to see that. But it showed they made a good
political drama.
Yeah, and they made a good point of showing how at this point the Senate is just like this puppetry kind of thing of just like empty people shouting into a big room of flying things and people turning their lights off like they're on The Voice or whatever they're doing in that. It was definitely a standout show. I think it's definitely in my top kind of 2 or 3 there, but I think the next one that I want to talk about is House of the Dragon.
House of Dragon House.
Dragon House, baby.
Yeah, it was great. Game of Thrones was obviously a cultural phenomenon, and I loved Game of Thrones. I've read all the books, absolutely fell in love with it, and then it ended on such a sour note. It just nobody talked about Game of Thrones for years after.
It was a bit like how Avatar just disappeared from like the public consciousness. Like Game of Thrones was like a bad word, wasn't it?
It really was. And
even to the point of this, the premiere of this, people were split on it, I reckon. Like, even I was, we talked about it on pod. I was kind of a little bit unconvinced, and I think I was more excited about Lord of the Rings in some ways. I was kind of a bit indifferent to both at the time, and I was kind of just like,
I had kind of fallen into the hype train because seeing like clips of the early seasons and reading the books, and then when it started and you kind of get those first couple episodes in, you're like, shit, this is proper Game of Thrones. First 4 seasons Game of Thrones back, and it was great. It was more political and less like fighting and less magical in some ways than Game of Thrones is. Obviously there's dragons, magic in that side, but
it was a nice contrast though, because we did see the dragons were a big presence throughout a lot of it, hence the name Dragon House. But they as much as they were an integral part to it, like you say, the politics and the kind of grounded royalty level stuff was the stuff that took like the main stage.
And I think the fact that it's a one season set over like 20 years or something makes for really interesting storytelling, in that you can see all the backstory to how these deep-seated, long-standing relationships have developed, particularly between Alicent and Rhaenyra.
Really good.
Who are rivals and by the end of it at each other's throats.
Didn't you say, when we talked about it at one point, that the showrunners at one point wanted to skip straight to like halfway through this season?
But George R. R. Martin insisted having those
to see
first
all
5
the early
episodes.
Stuff.
Because it is important to see where this all came from. So if you just introduced it, you'd be like, there's so much background behind these characters that you're not aware of.
There were some moments even, I think I was kind of like, oh, it is strange that they had like the young cast only for, 2/3 of a season or whatever, or a third, or however long it was. But it really, it was a really, really satisfying season overall. It really left you wanting more. I think the cast were fantastic. Matt Smith, I can't remember any of the names. Emma Darcy, Olivia Kirk, Paddy Considine. Just a really, really solid cast that all gave, for some of them, the performances of their lifetime so
Yeah.
far.
And it was really great at like people like Matt Smith's Daemon Targaryen is
Yeah.
a character that's a complete knob, but you love. And then other
Yeah.
characters who are just like Kristen Cole, who
Yeah.
seem great at first, and you just turn on them and hate them. It's a real similar to how Game of Thrones was early on with characters like Joffrey or even Ramsay Bolton. Characters that it really makes you feel things about.
And it was really fun seeing the public reaction to these characters going on. I know one thing that we had quite a lot of fun with on the pod was you knowing, based on the source material, pretty much where the story was going, and me making kind of either wild or, pretty good predictions based on how I was feeling that episode.
Yeah.
And we had some good discussion, that and Andor, and what other one was it we were talking about? It was
Rings
that and
of
Andor,
Power.
and Rings of Power. Yeah. It was just, I think all three of those were around the same time, and we were kind of spoiled for choice in a lot of ways. But I think in hindsight, House of Dragon stands above the rest for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think like I said, I loved Rings of Power, but I think House of the Dragon was consistently good throughout its 10 episodes. Like, there wasn't a bad episode in there, and it got bigger and bigger, and Paddy Considine got more and more dead with each episode, which was fun. You always thought he was dead at the episode, then he'd come back looking like a zombie, and then somehow looks even more dead the next episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, House of the Dragon, I can't wait for season 2.
I cannot.
Again, as you mentioned, knowing the source material, knowing some stuff that's going to come early in season 2 is going to break the internet. Like, it's going to be great. And yeah, it's one of the best shows I've watched since Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Which is
it's
high praise.
Fair, yeah, especially for you. Not that you watch bad shows, but that you like Game of Thrones so much.
Oh, I was like, do I not watch much TV?
Well, you have watched Lost for the 7th time recently.
I think I'm on their 8th front, actually. And it is still great TV.
I have no idea. I think House of Dragon's up top for me, and then I think it's between Cabinet of Curiosities and Andor for second, and then Peacemaker as a third, if we put those two as joint.
Yeah.
I know we're not ranking them, but, those are all the ones I had highlighted.
I think
there.
House of the Dragon is a clear number one for me. I think Rings of Power and Andor are second and third. And then to finish off the top 5, I had Prehistoric Planet and Stranger Things in there as well. Yeah. But I think we both agree in that our top personal project TV show of the year is House of the Dragon.
House of the Dragon. Well done, Dragon House.
So I'm kind of surprised how much we've agreed on everything so far. It's almost as if we're two similar people that watch similar TV shows.
And that we had to talk about them every week for 6 weeks or more. So this is the part where it'll probably change up a bit, because there's some films that some of us watch, some of us haven't.
Some of us, the collective group of people.
Some of us, the Project team that we have, the writers backstage, they're not doing a very good job this episode. Not many jokes so far. Come on, writers, feed us more jokes. Come on. I don't really know how you want to do this. I guess we'll just kind of work our way through organically.
Sure.
Which is the least organic way anyone's ever started a segment.
Yeah. Let's start with a film we went to see together and covered in Silver Screen Project, our ongoing side project, which is The Batman.
The Batman, yes.
Which I think was the best Batman film since The Dark Knight.
I would probably agree there.
I thought it was great.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't had much choice in the middle, to be honest.
No, but Robert Pattinson was great. Paul Dano was great. This new kind of Gotham.
Yeah.
It felt like Gotham, but it was different to Gotham.
Yeah, it was
Andy
somehow...
Serkis again.
Andy Serkis again. God, he's almost an alumni. He's an alumni for for mention on episodes. But yeah, I think the fact they managed to make it somehow more grounded than the Dark Knight trilogy, but not feeling the same in any way, was just a real accomplishment.
Yeah.
It was darker than I really expected it to be. It was kind of horrific and kind of sad and moody and terrible and very wet and cold.
Goth
and
Batman.
I really, really enjoyed it. I haven't gone back to watch it yet. I've been planning on it, but it is a very long film, so I haven't put the time aside yet. But yeah, I'm really excited for where things go with that. We've had a couple of discussions, probably off pod, really, about where we think it might go, where they might come back to it. I think
Yeah.
it'll probably be at least a couple of years from now, because I don't think there's anything announced particularly.
I do hope they bring back Robert Pattinson's Batman and don't
Well,
just leave it as
there's the
standalone.
whole DC shuffle that at time of recording is still kind of being announced.
Don't know where this is going, but I think it'd be good to see.
Yeah, I mean, Joker 2 is being filmed as we speak, so I imagine they'll give this at least a second.
It got in before James Gunn.
It's the best, one of the better received. Well, it's probably a mix with Joker, the best received of the recent DC films.
I wasn't a huge fan of Joker.
No, I thought it was pretty fun.
I thought this was far better than Joker.
But I think, like, critically and money making wise, it's a sure bet for DC. So it seems silly for them not to carry this on. Yeah,
Batman's definitely one of the better films we watched in 2022.
Yeah,
you got anything you want to?
Yeah, I'm just trying to decide because there's quite a few on here. We talked about the Northman a little bit. I watched it a little bit later than you. I watched it. You went to see it in the cinema.
I went to see the cinema.
Yeah, so I watched it at home, which I think kind of slightly lessen the impact of it. It's quite a kind of cinematic film,
epic tale.
I did really enjoy it. I think my expectations kind of exceeded it a little bit. I really liked The Lighthouse, and I really, really wanted something that was kind of on par with that. I don't think it fully matched up with those expectations, but I really enjoyed just the weird kind of Norse Viking world that it created. The cast were really fun. Just good old times.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was one of my favorite films of the year for a long time after seeing it. Partly probably because the cinema experience, being drawn into that world. It looked incredible. It's acted incredible. The story is brilliant. Even it is Hamlet, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. Or Lion King.
It's Lion King in Viking times. But yeah, it was just really good. And I feel like there was a period of like 20 years ago where we were getting a load of like Greek epics like Troy and Gladiator. And we've had dabbled in some Viking stuff like the Vikings TV show. But this was kind of felt like that grand scale big film that we don't get a lot these days.
No.
We get a lot of sci-fi or comic book stuff, but like a medieval society, like epic story is great to see again. And I hope this kind of spurs on a thing like, let's make Viking movies.
I'm not sure. I think it was quite well received critically. I don't think it made a lot of money.
No.
I think part of the reason I didn't see it in the cinema is because it wasn't shown for that long here.
No, I saw it at Comedia. So people in Brighton will know it's a bit more of a smaller cinema that don't always just show the big blockbusters.
No, I don't. It was on buses and posters and stuff. So I think they put a lot into it. But I don't think a lot of people saw it, unfortunately, which is a shame because, you could tell. So I was kind of shit on it a little bit, but the visually and, the Robert Eggers, from The Lighthouse, the film before, he's got a really distinct visual style, and they do some really good stuff with verging on like monochromatic black and white stuff.
Yeah.
We spoke about when I watched it with the moonlight and just some weird visions. There's a bit where Bjork's like the weird kind of like fate side, witch. Yeah, it's just I liked, and even Willem Dafoe as the kind of shaman bit at the start. They have the mushroom trip. There was some bits I really liked, but I think I was expecting something different. So in that sense, wasn't the best film for me.
Yeah, for me, there's not many films that can pull off two naked guys fighting on a volcano as the climax, and that's what they did, and it was great. Yeah, it looked fantastic. So Northman's definitely a favourite of mine for the year. Anything else?
I've got a fair few. I mentioned very quickly. I only saw it because you put together the list of what we talked about. The Kenneth Branagh directed and written, I think, film Belfast, which came out right near the start of the year, about his kind of semi-autobiographical kind of the early troubles. It was just a really solid kind of family drama that had quite a lot of heart to it. Can't remember a lot of the cast. I know that fucking hell, what's she called? Judi Dench is the grandma in it, and the guy is called like Kieran something. He plays a guy in Game of Thrones. Let me just do a little bit of a quick look. Apparently, this came out last year, but I think I must have watched it in the cinemas.
Yeah, I think it was late last year for
2022.
early release, so we could have that Oscar run because it was nominated for Best Picture.
It came out in the UK in January, so I
Yeah.
did see it in the cinema this year. Kieran Hines
Yes,
and
he
Jamie
was in Game
Dornan
of
is the
Thrones.
dad as well. Yeah, it's good little drama. If you ever fancy watching something it's serious and it's quite moving, but it's not like a real downer of a film, especially considering the topic. You'd think it might be
And
a little bit.
It's one of those that's really good at showing
Did
that.
you watch it?
Yeah.
Oh right.
Yeah, I think I spoke about it. I think I watched it back in like February.
Fair enough. I don't remember you watching it.
It was one of those.
I was like, okay, you're pretending you watched it here.
No, it's one of those that's really good at kind of showing that it's set in the Troubles without being a war film.
Yeah,
and it's just more the feeling and the atmosphere of Belfast than the Troubles
and being
themselves.
from the perspective of the children and just the kind of awful things that were happening, but from a very childlike perspective. I think cool. You got anything else?
Yeah,
of course you got some other things.
Yeah, I've got loads more things. Another one that I think is worth mentioning that again we went to cinema to see and covered the Silver Screen Project is Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I enjoyed it way more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah,
it was just pure fun and like it was great, and the plot had a couple of twists and turns.
Yeah,
it's not the most incredible plot ever written.
It wasn't the deepest film at all, was it?
But it was just pure fun.
It was a good old thrill ride. I think we got really wrapped up in the whole world because we did silver screen on Top Gun 1 beforehand.
Yeah, and going to the cinema to see it.
Went to the cinema to see 2. Went straight out of the cinema, recorded our silver screen on it. I really enjoyed it as well. That was a real surprise hit for me. Obviously, for most people, it's like, oh, really? Obviously, that's going to be a big film, good action film.
But a lot of these I went into being like, oh yeah, I know like the Batman. I know like the Northman.
Yeah, exactly.
But this,
we were so hyped coming out of that film.
No,
we were like, woo!
I remember when we sat down in the cinema to watch it, Amy was there as well.
Yeah.
I turned and said to you, like, I think this is the least excited I've ever been for a film I'm seeing in the cinema, because usually you only go to see.
Yeah.
And then
That's why
by the end
so
of it, I was
surprising.
punching the air and
there was the old guy in the cinema. You guys had a little look.
yeah, just like, yeah.
Hell yeah,
I nearly
bro.
signed up for the US Air Force. Or is it the Navy?
I think it's the Navy, which is very confusing, because they land on the boats. That's how you remember, There's a couple here that you didn't watch there. RRR is the it's not Bollywood, I think it was Tollywood. Semi-musical action epic, which I say you haven't watched. I did show you a couple of clips one time when you came round.
But again, it's like 3 hours.
It's like 3 hours. It's definitely an honourable mention for me. It was one of the most enjoyable in a silly way films I've watched this year or last year at time of release. I wouldn't say it's, quality wise, anything particularly great, but I really, really enjoyed it. It's definitely worth watching. Another one, Prey, I mentioned on Pod. You didn't get a chance to watch that yet. No. Yeah, for Predator films, it is one of my favorites. So if you're in the lookout for a Predator film, that would be one of them for sure. What you got?
Yeah, I think another one worth an honourable mention is Pinocchio, which I watched recently.
Yeah, I almost watched
Not
that,
as much for the story, but for the visuals, the stop motion stuff. Guillermo del Toro really is passionate about.
Yeah, you said you watched the documentary
the
as
making
well.
of.
Yeah, I saw a little clip on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, which was a trailer for the making of thing. So it was like a 1 or 2 minute thing. Saw some of those bits you talked about on Pod with the scale.
Yeah,
there's the one with the really big head, and you've got the little Jiminy Cricket and all that. Yeah, it looked really, really, really fun, and I will check it out at some point. Just haven't yet.
Yeah, fair enough. Another thing that I watched early this year that I thought was great was Nightmare Alley.
Yes, so I did get a chance to watch that. I watched
that
last night. I watched it actually.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I remember at the time being like, "This is interesting."
Very interesting.
It goes all over the
yeah,
place.
you mentioned earlier, films that kind of start in one place and end in a very different place. Well, in some ways, it ends in the same place it starts, but I didn't really know what to expect. I hadn't really looked into it at all. I know that you'd recommended it for watching for this, and the cast is really solid.
I think it's probably Bradley Cooper's best performance.
Potentially, yeah. I think the thing that really intrigued me about it is that it is quite a long film. It's 2.5 hours, I think, but it didn't feel like a long film. It really keeps you going throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
It looks really good. I love how as it goes on, it somehow becomes more noir, and they keep doing the, like the shadows with the eyes lit up thing, like the bar across the eyes coming through a blind or whatever. There's moments like with Kate Blanchett in The Office where it's so dramatically lit that it's almost just verging on like a kind of Sin City kind of parody.
Yeah,
but it really works.
Guillermo del Toro along with
another Guillermo del Toro as well.
I've just said it was technically released in mid-December 2021.
Right.
But
well, we got it on Disney Plus this year.
Yeah, and it would have been showing in 2022.
Yeah.
But again, it's another film that didn't really make its money back.
No.
But
I wouldn't be surprised that... Oh, no, so it wouldn't be in any Oscars for this year,
I think it was nominated for Oscars last year.
I
think that's why I watched it. I was watching some of the...
Yes, that would make sense.
Oscars.
But I was really surprised by it.
It was nominated for Best
One thing I
Picture.
will say is that... So quite often when I'm watching films, I'm kind of thinking like, oh, where's this going to go? Or, kind of trying to predict the ending in like an annoying way. And I've learned when I'm watching it with Amy, I don't want to spoil the ending. 'Cause quite often I'll guess what's happened.
Yeah.
So about the midpoint when things were going really well for the Bradley Cooper main character, I was like, I've just had a thought about where this could end. I was like,
oh yeah.
I wrote it down on my phone. I was like, I've written it down. I'll show you at the end. And then when it got to the end, I was like,
I had a similar thing about halfway through. I was like, he's going to end up in the end situation. He does. But I was like, you know what? Actually, I'm completely fine with that because I'm more invested in how he gets there. No, totally.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad thing at all. And it was the kind of the big fall that he had, which is very, very sudden, and how dramatic it all is with the bit with the graveyard and the seance type thing. And it's just like, there's lots of really stupid character choices, but in a like, it's just like bravado and like it's not
Willem Dafoe again.
Willem Dafoe again, who's turned up.
He had a great year.
Guillermo del Toro and Willem Dafoe have shown up at least twice so far. Yeah. No, I would definitely rate that. I haven't really had time to really process it, so I feel like I'm not sure where it falls in my kind of categories, but definitely up top.
Cool.
There's a couple. So Avatar: The Way of Water, I've got to do honorable mention because we just watched it. At time of recording. I don't think it was, best film in lots of ways, but I do think visually and technically it's definitely a mention there. It looks better than some of the films on this list. Definitely some of the films that we've talked about, MCU wise and kind of science fictiony, that sort of thing. And one other thing I was going to mention, Bodies, which I mentioned a couple of times on pods.
Yeah.
You didn't watch that one?
No, I took it around.
Just a fun little murder mystery. Really good characters in there. Very, very kind of annoying, rich 20-somethings. There's a very funny bit about podcasts in it, which I think you would appreciate, where a character talks about how difficult it is to run a podcast, and the whole joke is like you're whining about nothing, and I'm like, she's like, you have to make a Google Calendar and get guests organized.
No, you don't.
Like, no, we just have a group chat. Just ask them when they want to come on the pod, and then talk over them for 2 hours.
As is the formula.
I don't know. The one last one, which is probably I've got a couple top films here. Nope, I've mentioned a couple of times.
I thought you were going to say that. I didn't get around to it, annoyingly. No. I really wanted to, but... Yeah,
unfortunately, the guy up the road who sells the DVDs, he got the wrong address, unfortunately. He delivered it to the wrong place. The upload didn't finish in time.
I heard my neighbour watching TV and loudly heard Daniel Kaluuya go, nope. And I was like, damn, he got my DVD.
And you got the one that's called Yep instead, didn't you?
Yarp.
But not much else to say that I haven't said on pod already. If you get a chance to watch it at some point, we can have a bit more of a chat about it if you fancy. But I would I'm potentially going to pop this at my top. I know there's one that we haven't discussed yet, which I think is Everything Everywhere.
Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I watched again last night because I knew we were going to talk about it today.
So I haven't yet had a chance to watch it a second time.
I think the second watch is just as good as the first watch because you start seeing the side.
That's what I'm excited
when
about,
it first came out and I watched it, I raved about it. It's one of the best things I've seen in years. Stand by that in that, like, a film that is so surreal, makes you cry, make you laugh, all in one.
All in one scene almost as well. Yeah,
it's so rare and it's so brilliant. It's such a unique film.
Yeah, it's so chaotic yet also really just like concise and really well planned out.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it comes to the end, it's like it's just a story between a relationship between a mother and daughter. That's all it is.
Yeah.
But it's so wacky. And rewatching it last night was great, and kind of seeing the characters at the start, like particularly the husband.
Yeah.
You kind of have the revelation almost at the end that he does everything he does because that's his role in the family. And then seeing that from the start is kind of like, wow, like he really did nail this. And you see everything from the start. Cool. The imagery as well with like there's bagels, loads of bagels
all over the place.
Well, they sit and eat bagels at one point. There's one of the receipts they give to Jamie Lee Curtis is circled in black, heavily loads, which just looks like the everything bagel.
Yeah,
it's I can't give the film enough praise.
So would you say that this is a better Jamie Lee Curtis role than Halloween Ends?
I saw that on the list and I was like, oh, did I like that? Oh no, wait, I liked Halloween. Halloween Ends was awful.
People really liked Halloween Ends.
You can't trust people.
No, Everything Everywhere though. I echo all the same things as you. I was really surprised about both the kind of sentimental, emotional moments, but also I didn't expect the action to be so well choreographed and kind of effective. There's only really 2-3 action sequences, martial arts kind of style stuff. But I remember thinking that they were really impressive at the time. I think when I watched it, I was quite tired and I kind of didn't really take everything in. And there's a lot to take in.
There is
everything. But I'm excited to watch that again. I didn't get a chance to rewatch anything on the list, unfortunately. Although I have seen Nope twice this year already, so I wasn't going to watch that again. But I think was there anything else you wanted to talk about on those ones?
No, I think that's it. There's other stuff.
So what are you putting at your first one then for that?
Number one is Everything Everywhere All at Once for me.
Yeah.
I think there's other stuff I've really liked, but that really blew my mind.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I think I've got to stick with Nope, to be honest. I think it was probably I watched it twice, so that says a lot for me as well. I think Everything Everywhere was definitely in the top few. Bodies again is something I watched twice. To be fair, a lot of these is because I watched it without Amy and then I watched it with Amy, so that's probably why. Bodies. I don't think it's probably not one of the best films of the year, but it's one of the films I enjoyed the most.
Yeah.
And then Nightmare Alley being a recent one that I watched last night, definitely got to say, and The Batman as well. And Top Gun Maverick for just a fun cinema experience.
Yeah, Top Gun Maverick was great. I think Everywhere number one for me. I think 2 and 3 are probably the Northman and Nightmare Alley.
Yeah.
Don't know which order, and the Batman's probably close behind. But the Northman, Nightmare Alley, loved them both. But Everything Everywhere All at Once is my personal project film of the year, and
mine is Nope.
So it's nice to differ.
Finally,
differ
some difference.
Yeah, on the last category as well.
So that wraps things up, I think, for the inaugural Project 2022 year in review. Yeah, I got to say it. There we go.
Inaugural year in review, not 2022 year in review, because we're not going to do 2022 year in review every year.
No, I fucked it again.
But I think we've watched some great stuff, lots of shit, but some
Yeah.
really good stuff that will stick with me for a while.
Definitely. And
both project films and personal project films.
Absolutely. I think for project films and well, mainly for TV shows, Lazarus Project could well be something that comes out towards the end of 2023. So that would be nice to revisit
and
that.
I think Lazarus could have been in the conversation of the personal projects TV shows. Obviously, we had House of Dragon as number one. I do think Lazarus would probably be in my top 5.
If it hadn't been, if it had been in the other section, for sure, yeah. For project films, there's always 2023, isn't there? I mean, Shadowchaser was good fun, but we need more Shadowchasers. Is what we need.
The two best project films were Project A Part 2 and Shadowchaser 2 for me.
Yeah,
which were both sequels.
Both sequels, yeah.
So maybe next year it'll be the Christmas Project 2 that gets it.
Never. No, but there are a couple that we haven't spoken about on pod, and I won't reveal what they are, but a couple, one that you sent me that sounded quite interesting. That could be something that's in contender for top next year. Having said that at the start of the year, so who knows where it's going to go.
Project Artemis won't be out in next year. I think it's going to be the year after.
Yeah. That James Bond game, that might be out. Probably not. I know that's
probably
not a film.
But yeah, I think that just about wraps us up. So thank you for listening to both this and throughout 2022. I know many of you did listen to every episode, which is nice to see. We got our little Spotify wraps.
Yeah, we can see the consistent.
Saw some stats.
Some people's, a nice handful of people's top podcasts, which is mind blowing, to be honest.
Which is it's fun to see. It's been a fun year, even though we have watched a lot of shit. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it.
And it's just been nice to have people support us throughout our first full calendar year as well. We started more than halfway through last year, 2021. So it's been a fun ride, and we're not stopping the ride just yet.
No, bring on 2023. We'll be returning back to our usual routine around mid-January. We haven't got a definitive date yet, but
I think this will probably be coming out first or second week of Jan, and then we'll be maybe a week or so break. We'll see. You'll know kind of vaguely based on when this comes out.
But we will be back for another full year if everything goes to plan, with many more things to watch. We'll have White Rabbit and Blue Earth to finish off, Shadowchaser 4 to watch. Some new stuff to watch.
Maybe some Zeta if we want to come back to that.
We'll do some reports. I know I've got a couple in mind that we almost definitely will cover. Maybe we'll do Nemesis again as well.
We've got a potential guest report as well, our first one. So that's in the look.
That could be great.
Something I didn't mention earlier, if you've listened through this, we did our best really not to spoil any of the things we talked about there. So if any of the projects, TV shows or films or reports took your fancy from that, obviously you can go back and find the episode quite easily just by a little search. So you can use this as a little recommendation thing there. And same for the films and TV shows that are non-project. If any of those took your fancy, you can let us know. You can let us know via email at theprojectprojectpod@gmail.com if you picked up any of these off our recommendations. If there's anything that we missed from best TV shows or films from 2022, please let us know, because I'm sure there's loads of stuff we missed there.
I'd love to be given a long list of stuff to watch. We'll have the Oscars coming up in February, so there'll probably be a few nominees in there worth watching.
It'd be interesting to see how much that correlates. Probably not. Actually, Banshees of Inisherin, the Colin Farrell and older Gleeson. What's he called? Brian Gleeson. No,
Brendan.
Brian's the one from Lazarus.
He is, you're right.
That's just gone on Disney Plus. So not in time for us to do this, but at time of recording, it's just gone up. So apparently that's a pretty good film.
Nice. Be interesting to see. I think Everything Everywhere might get an Oscar nod somewhere.
I would imagine, at least for some sort of visual effects stuff, or something. For sure.
I'd like to see it get a Best Picture nominee. That'd
be great. Yeah.
I think The Husband could be in for Best Supporting Actor as well.
That would be good. Yeah,
it's always nice to see the films you really like get some accolades. But hopefully you have enjoyed this and you can give us 5 stars on wherever you're listening to. It's always great, and
Easy to do.
It helps build the podcast.
Yeah.
And as well as giving 5 stars, go tell people. Just scream in the streets. Listen to the project.
Word of mouth, retweeting, liking. It sounds really like simple and stupid, but
yeah,
it really fucking helps.
When I hear people do this, I'm like, ugh, but it does really have an impact. There's a reason that like all podcasts and all YouTubers do this bit where they like and subscribe. Genuinely, please do.
Try and do it in a slightly less boring way than that, but we'll see how that goes.
But that concludes 2022. Thank you for coming along, and I will hear you next year.
Woo! I'll see you in January. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.